Welcome back. Glad you are still with us. I see Susan on Twitter nasema kusema ukweli, mimi I talk at my children. And these are the honest conversations that we want to have with you this morning. As a parent or a guardian, do you talk to your children, at your children, or with your children? Share with us your thoughts. I will be reading them as we proceed on with this particular discussion. In studio, we have Fred Abok as well as Joyce Mgoy helping us with this conversation, looking at how we can use communication to build on our relationships with children, and consequently, we will not be seeing some of this unrest that we have been seeing in our country in our schools. Now, let me come to you, Abok, the aspect of listening. We heard from Joyce, it's not just a question of listening to respond, it's a question of listening to understand. What are your thoughts about our behavior as parents when it comes to listening to our children when they are trying to communicate with us?
Thank you, Jen. I think it's also important to understand that listening is an art that you're actually developed systematically over time. And of course, most of the time is that listening needs to be approached with an undivided attention. Most cases when children are talking to parents, parents are either have a divided attention because they have a preempt response. So listening needs to be constant.
Yes.
Listening needs to be attentive, but also listening needs to be based on the grace that you listen empathetically, so that the person who's actually speaking to you get to understand that your emotions and intellect and all that is within you is listening. But of course, most cases, actually, we try to divert our attention because we think for our children, the basic needs are already provided for. And of course, it's just a passerby. And so we try to watch TV as we listen, text on our SMS, on our phones as we listen. And this begin to develop an attitude on children that, you know what, parents are actually not concerned. And so there's no need of sharing. And that's why they look for other people to share with, so that those who can be able to give them a listening ear.
All right, I hear you, and that is actually one of the other aspects that I wanted us to look at, and I'm glad that you have addressed it, is the distractions that are there when our children are trying to communicate with us. And given you've addressed it, I want us to move on to another aspect, and this is the environment and what role it plays towards effective communication with our children. You find most times as parents, when our children are trying to tell us something and it agitates us in a way, we tend to react. And in reacting, some might pinch them, some might, you know, be loud, raise their voices, or actually hit them. And you never stop to think the environment you are in with your child and what that boils down to them, what it means to them. When it comes to looking at the environment in which you are communicating or trying to talk with your child, let me come to you, Joyce. What role do you think it plays towards ensuring that what you're trying to communicate is what your child understands at the end of the day?
It's very important what you have said, that sometimes when we are, as parents, we are listening to our children, we become agitated, we react to them, we pinch, we shout. And we need to know that the teens and the children are very sensitive to shouting. Once you shout, you actually block them. You block them from listening to you at all. Yes. Now, what I would like to encourage, even as parents, sometimes, yes, your child is trying to talk to you and you have some other things that you are doing at that moment. You may not be able to listen carefully. But it's very important for you to create time and to sit down with that child and ask them, what were you trying to tell me at that particular time? So that now you have your focus on them and they have their focus on you as the parent. And then they are able to relate whatever issue they wanted to talk to you about, so that you can be able to understand and can be able to resolve it. If you are able to resolve it, you can resolve it. If you are not able to resolve it, then you can tell them, maybe we can talk about this later, or you can tell them what you think about whatever issue it is that they are trying to raise.
Yes.
So you must create an environment where you are communicating you and that particular child. Distractions are many. Also, if you try to talk to your child, talking with, you know, if you try to talk to your child in the presence of the others, and it is a sensitive matter. It's a sensitive matter. Again, it doesn't really go well.
It can embarrass them.
It can embarrass them. So it's very important for parents to be able to be very sensitive to their children.
Yes.
They have needs. that they need to communicate to the parent, and the parent need to be available so that they can listen to them and they can be able to help them resolve those particular issues. The same to schools. When the teachers are so harsh and unapproachable, it becomes very difficult for these students to be able to approach. Actually, when they see you, they run away. So that means even if they have an issue, they cannot be able to approach a teacher and say this is what is going on. Even up to including maybe observing and seeing someone is indisciplined in one way or another. Students cannot bring to a teacher's attention that so and so is not going in the right direction. There is that kind of fear. So there shouldn't be fear between parents and children. There should be open communication, and this should be started right from the beginning, because the parents are the ones who should start this kind of communication when the children are growing. Homes are the formative stages of communication. It's a formative stage. So they need to know that if I have an issue, I can talk to my mom, I can talk to my dad, I can talk to my aunt, and they can listen, and this issue can be resolved. It has to start from that area. So that even when they go to secondary schools and they have an issue, they know I can approach a teacher and I can be helped.
All right.
Yes.
Abok, I'd also like to get your thoughts, and especially from a man's point of view, and also as a parent, when it comes to understanding that the environment in which you communicate with your child has a huge role to play, for that matter, in how effective your communication will be with your child.
Yeah, Jen, environment plays a very vital role in communication. Because the respondents of a communication, number one, needs to understand that they are honored, respected, and safe with their information that they're sharing.
Yes.
And this, whoever is actually sharing the information is definitely vulnerable, because they're passing on something that is so secretive and so diligent unto them. And so an environment preempt the safetiness and the confidence that this person develops when they're sharing the information. And so it is important for the recipient to create an environment of grace, of respect and understanding, but also above all provide safety. Because the fact that the information is shared is in itself that there's an intention for solution. And so it needs to be received with a lot of respect, and environment needs to be created that this person feels safe to be able to pour out their heart. All right. Regardless.
Now, still looking at the environment, and the next aspect, and I still want to start with you, Abok, is validating our children's feelings. Because many a times we are quick to say, "Sasa huyu ni nini namsumbua? Why is this child being entitled?" We never take the time to validate how they feel and tell them it's okay to feel how you feel. However, it's always, kwa nini? Unataka nini? Ulifanya hivyo kwa nini? When it comes to validating our children's feelings, or if this, whichever child, whether your child or that particular child is under your care, what role does validating their feelings have to play in ensuring there is effective communication?
Great. Validation actually helps on to build confidence in our children. It's basically in response to understanding the dynamics at which our children grow up. Definitely where our children grow up, the environment is totally different from the environment that we did grow up.
Yes.
The exposure did take place pretty early, and there are a lot of dynamics in their upbringing, and this sometimes expose them to some factors that help them to be able to grow up and be able to be inquisitive in different things. So the element of understanding help us to move from the known to the unknown. And this will be able to help us diagnose what the issue is all about. So it is very intentional to to understand that dynamic, so that you can be able to come out with the solution. Because, you know, the bottom line is the solution. And so if we can actually be able to explore all the dynamics to be able to bring an amicable solution, the better for us.
Do you agree with Abok's thoughts, Joyce?
Yes.
When it comes to validating our children's feelings?
Actually, that is one of the most important things that can make a communication with the parents be very effective. Because validation of these children is because who is feeling? If a child comes to you and tells you, "Mommy, I'm feeling this," or "Daddy, I'm feeling this," you cannot rubbish that kind of a feeling, because they are the ones who are feeling. It is not you who is feeling. It is the child who is feeling. So you need to find out exactly why they are feeling what they are feeling. What is it that is making them feel the way they are feeling? So it's very important to validate, to say it's okay to feel this, and then explore all those causes or reasons why they are feeling like that, and then see how you can be able to help this particular child. And that's where empathy comes in.
Yes.
It's very important for parents, for teachers to have empathy, putting themselves in the shoes of this learner, in the shoes of this child, because it is the child who is feeling. It is the child who is saying, I am going through this, I am going through that. You as a parent cannot laugh it off and say, what is this? Why are you feeling like this? Why are you feeling? If you do that, you block. They block themselves, and therefore you'll not be able to reach them, and you'll not be able to know exactly why they are feeling what they are feeling. So let parents, let teachers be able to accept these children, that whatever they are feeling is valid. In fact, there was a slogan of mental health that was saying, not okay is okay.
Yes.
You know, feeling I'm not okay, it is okay to feel I'm not okay. Then you're asked, why are you not feeling okay? Then you are able now to state all those reasons that are making you not to feel okay. Then they can be dealt with, or you can have a discussion, and therefore you end up feeling much better. So it's very, very key if we validate what they are feeling.
Actually, there's Martha here on Twitter who's saying, what is validation? This is a foreign concept. Growing up, ilikuwa mambo na kuwa hard knock. Feelings were not part of any conversation with our parents. I absolutely agree. We need to learn to validate how our children feel. They also have emotions.
Yes.
Very good lesson there from parents. And that consequently brings me to the next aspect, and this now greatly falls on the part of the parents, and this has to do with emotional intelligence and knowing, in as much as you can say what you want to say, know when to say it, gauging the emotions that you could strike, and especially in your child. Abok, the role of emotional intelligence when it comes to handling issues with your child and consequently leading to effective communication.
Yeah, Jen, today's society is very dynamic because understanding the times and the seasons in which our kids are in plays a very vital role in bringing on to the solution of the issues that they're going through. For example, the girls, you know, they actually go through dynamic changes in their physical bodies.
Yes.
And, you know, when they are actually expressing them, the role of emotional intelligence plays a big role in getting on to understand, so that you can be able to respond amicably but also appropriately to what they're actually sharing. So emotional intelligence plays a big role. And of course, since that we are talking about the issues of teenagers, this is a stage of developing but also self-discovery. A lot of changes are taking place. They are actually discovering themselves and looking on for their space. Now, from understanding where they are coming from, help us to be able to craft a design solution that can be able to be tailor-made to the problems that they're actually sharing. So it is important not just understand yourself, but to understand them. And in that, you will be able to understand one another. All
right. Joyce, what are your thoughts when it comes to emotional intelligence? Oh, my roots. They are very out and proud today.
Exactly.
But the issue of emotional intelligence, especially on the part of parents and guardians.
Emotional intelligence is being able to recognize your own feelings, identifying them, and being able to also recognize other people's emotions, and also being able to manage your own emotions. So on the role of the parents, there is need for emotional intelligence, because that is what will help them to know what their children are feeling, because they'll be able to identify the emotions of their children, and they'll be able to know, if I do this or if I do the other, then this child or this son of mine or daughter of mine will not feel good if I treat her or treat him this way or that way. Emotional intelligence is also about being socially aware, the society or the people you are living with, being able to identify their emotions and being able to know that there are certain things that make them unhappy,
Yes.
or there are certain things that will hurt them. And so we are called to develop emotional intelligence. Be aware of our own emotions and be aware of other people's emotions, and being able to know that if we do certain things, then we will hurt them, and they will be, we will disappoint them, and so on. So it is very key in communication also, because it brings in something called empathy. Again, we have talked about that.
Yes.
Being able to put yourself in your child's shoe, being able to put yourself in your, in your neighbor's shoe, being able to know exactly what they are feeling is key for everyone to be able to develop emotional intelligence, because it helps you to be able to work with other people, to be able to relate with them, to be able to just live with people. Actually, you need emotional intelligence.
Absolutely, and especially when it comes to your children. I mean, you as a parent or guardian are such a huge source of reference for so many things in life.
Yeah.
So knowing how to handle your emotion, and especially when you are on the extremes, is very important. We have Thuli Madonsela who says, practicing emotional regulation is important because if you don't, emotions can run wild and ruin your life and ultimately your child's life. Practice emotional intelligence. Now, I want to bring in another issue, and I shared this with a few people, and there are two main schools of thought, and this is all about dictatorship as a parent. There are those who say that dictatorship has gotten them to where they are. Mzazi akisema, amesema. There's no two way to it. And there are those who say that there needs to be room for negotiation as a parent with your child. Wengine wanasema, remember, you are not this child's friend. You are their parent, and it is your responsibility to bring them up in the way that you feel best. Negotiations aside. Na kuna wale wanasema, ukali ni lazima. When it comes to ensuring that you are able to communicate with your child, and at the end of the day, don't have them acting out like we saw with them burning schools, maiming teachers, killing each other. Dictatorship versus negotiation. To what end, or how far is too far with these two issues hand in hand? Let me start with you, Abok.
Jane, it's important. I come from a background or the school of thought that life is in quadrants. And so the quadrant is that there are negotiables and there are non-negotiable. Bearing in mind that we are a component of a people who are actually composed of both the feelings, emotions, and intelligence. And so there are things that we need and there are things that we must have. And so for this, it is important to bring to an understanding so that, because the people behave in a certain way based on what they understand, not on the way they are tailor-made to. Because if you tailor-make them to behave in a certain way, then they will do that in your presence and they will do it opposite when they are absent from you. Now, we are actually sending these people, and our intention is for them to be independent and be able to behave. Now, what is happening here is you train a child on the way they should grow, and of course, when they grow, they don't depart from it.
Yes.
Helping a child to understand that watching this channel is harmful to your health, harmful to your emotional being, and you give them the reason, because I believe also that communication should be systematic, but also should be appropriate within a particular time. And so once someone knows the reason and the consequences of doing a particular thing, then they will abstain from it. Rather than saying, you know what, I don't know why you're telling me not to touch fire, yet I do not know how the fire looks like. So they will always be attempting to touch fire when you are not there. And so I believe that the quadrant of negotiables and non-negotiables are very important. That we say, you know what, this one, the consequences are this. Because I admire a scenario whereby I found someone saying, you know what, a child telling a visitor in their home, in our house, we don't watch that. And we don't watch it because of 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
And they know very well. Because that channel will always flip up. But in a scenario whereby they watch blue movies, and when you arrive, and because you are a macho man, they run to the bedroom, they will please you definitely, but that is not actually who they really are. So I would rather operate on the quadrant. and whereby we get to let our children reason with them and give them an understanding so that they can be independent wherever they are.
Negotiables and non-negotiables. All right, let me come to you, Joyce. And before you get to respond to that answer, is it okay for children to fear their parents to some extent?
To some extent, yes. It's important for them to fear their parents to some extent, but not the fear that will make them not to operate.
Yes.
No. So the issue of dictatorship and the issue of negotiation, actually there should be a middle ground. If you are purely a dictator, dictators don't explain why they have given this rule or that rule.
Yes.
It just has to be obeyed. But you need to sit down with them, have a dialogue with them, so that you can explain to them, just like Mr. Abok has said, you can explain to them why they need to obey certain rules. They need to know why they need to obey certain rules. In that way, even if they disobey, they will be able to know why this rule is there. And therefore, they will not rebel against the rule, but they will be obeying it out of understanding. And if someone else asked them, why do you do this? They will be able to say, I do this because of A, B, C, D. Yes. I don't watch this movie because of A, B, C, D. They will have the reasons why. So having a dialogue with your children, having a dialogue in the school is very important. But even as you have a dialogue, you must have the non-negotiables. As he has said, there are those things that you will explain to them, and then you will tell them, for this one, there's no two way. We must just do this, this particular way. The reason also being, you know, parents, someone said that even if a youth is standing, there are things that they can't see when an elder can see when they are seated down. Someone said that. So what we are saying is that when a parent says, don't do this or don't do the other, there is a reason, and a very good reason. So there are those things that a parent can say, for sure, this one I cannot allow. This one, let's talk about it, let us discuss. But even that one that you can't allow, tell them why you cannot allow. So that they can now make a decision out of themselves and say, I am buying to these values that have been passed by you, my parents. Because it's issues about values. The values that you carry, the values that are there in the home system, you need to pass them to these children. They need to know why you encourage some things, why you don't encourage some things.
All right. So you do support dictatorship and negotiation.
Yes.
As and when the situation
demands. A middle ground there.
All right. Yeah. Abok, I asked Joyce in regards to fear of parents. Now coming to you, should there be some fear between children and parents? Ile tu ya anajua akifanya
kitu ya muhimu ni kwamba tusizoeane.
Tusizoeane.
Yes.
Kafia ni muhimu. Kawoga kidogo tu.
So we lewa,
lakini usikuje kwangu.
The fact that we are telling stories and we are discussing football, soccer, and we are discussing how school was, tusizoeane.
Yes.
Okay.
You know the boundaries.
You
know the boundaries.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Hapa ninaona DJ Fragmo anasema parents should first create a friendly, conducive environment for their children in order to talk freely and share whatever is disturbing them. Nikona William Wamburi amesema, I really agree with Joyce's sentiments. Keep up the good work and congratulations. Allow me to say good morning. Okay, goes on to send his greetings. Agreeing with what you were saying when it comes to issues to do with dictatorship and negotiations. Now, this brings in the element of trust as part of communication with your children. And how soon, as a parent or guardian, should you start building trust with your children, especially when it comes to what they say to you in confidence? Because many a times, your child can come and tell you, nakwambia usiambie daddy, ama usiambie mommy. They trust you not to tell your partner, but you must tell your udaku partner, your prayer partner, na umwambie, usimwambie nilikuambia. But then again, of course they don't know, but issues to do with trust, building trust with your children as part of communication, and how early should you start it? Joyce?
I think this should be started as early as possible. I said, the parents and the home is a formative stage of behaviors, formative stage of communication and all that. So this should be started as early as possible. As they are growing, let them be able to know that they can trust you and let them also be able to know that you can trust them.
Yes.
So that when you tell them to do something,
you
communicate to them that I trust that you're going to do this. I trust that you will do this. So it should start as early as possible. But now when it comes to issues of when they come and confide with you and tell you, don't tell dad or don't tell mom, I think there is need for discussion. Because what is this that is okay for me to know, okay for dad? There are some things that you can agree with because you see no harm.
Yes.
If there are things that they tell you and they tell you don't tell dad, and you as a mother you can see there is no harm, there's no harm in this, then it is okay. But if there is harm, you need to discuss with them and tell them, now this one we cannot hide. You know, you cannot sweep under the carpet things that will blow up in future.
Yes.
And then it will become like your mother knew or your father knew, you know. Or
it breeds animosity.
It really brings even division in the family.
Okay.
That the daughter is doing her things with the mother, the son is doing their things with the father. It brings division in the family. So you need to know, what is this that they want me to know, but they don't want the father to know. Be able to discuss with them and to be able to identify. Because there are things that you cannot allow them to tell you, and then they tell you, don't tell dad, and you agree with that. You need to discuss with them and tell them, you need to tell your dad this. Find time, find confidence, you know, gain your courage and tell your dad, even if it's something which is sensitive.
Abok, the same comes to you, and especially those, you know, daddy-daughter conversations, mommy-son conversation, or dad-son, mom-daughter. Some of those I'm sure at one point or the other, your child or part of your family might have told you, usiambie mom hii, unajua ukimwambia mimi, that's the end. And consequently, they feel that they trust you more as opposed to the other person. When it comes to helping build trust, to ensure that communication is never a problem with your children.
Jen, you know we grew up in those houses that had no ceiling board, eh? Yes. Now you discuss something with your dad in the sitting room.
Mama,
then when they go to the bedroom and then they talk loud. Then they say it, so and so say it, and I should not tell you. But so you grow up. You say, did I just not say don't tell? And you hear them telling story. You are still in the sitting room, but you see them telling story in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Now, what is happening is that children have actually become very scheming. When they tell you don't tell, they will also go tell the other one and they say don't tell. So what they actually they are testing your capability of keeping their secrets. Of course, it is essential for understand that the children to understand that as parents you're playing one team.
Yes.
When it comes to parenting. And play it to an extent that they know that there is nothing that can be secretive between you.
Yes.
And so even if they're confiding in you, they're confiding in you for a particular remorsefulness and understanding, but they know that at the end of it, this information will have to actually reach either their dad or their mom.
Okay.
But also the level at which you can be able to promise trust is the level at which you can be able to promote vulnerability. So also be very intentional in the way you listen. To what extent are now a child trying to confirm to you, please don't tell so-and-so? Is it so exposed to an extent that they know that you always have that weakness?
Yes.
Especially praying parents. You know?
And nikiambia mom, dad atajua.
I wanted to say something, Jen.
Yes.
Yes. Let children confide in their parents or the parents that they feel comfortable with. Let the parent be able to empower this child to be able also to tell the other parent. Again, let's not be parents where your daughter comes, tells you something, immediately you have told your, you know, then the child feels hurt, feels disappointed because they are not ready.
Yes.
So you need to prepare that child who comes to you and tells you, Mom, I have this, but I don't want you to tell dad. It means they're not ready at that time to tell their dad.
But so you encourage them
You encourage them and you empower them so that they can share with their dad. But don't be immediately you're told, immediately you... That way you will even be making them not to come to you when they have an issue.
So slowly builds mistrust.
Some kind of trust and listening to them is encouraged. But build them and tell them, I think this one, you need to tell your dad or you need to tell your mom because of this and that. So you empower them so that they can be the ones to share with their dad. Not you've been told, you rush there and they will not build trust. Tomorrow they will not come to you when they have they have a problem. But
All right.
encourage them until they're able to tell their dad, so that there are no secrets in the family, especially those that are going to blow up. There are other things that they can tell you that are comfortable to just keep quiet about them, but there are those that you really cannot keep quiet about them.
All right.
But you encourage them to talk themselves.
And this also goes a long way to encourage your children to trust each parent.
Yes.
Now, as we close this conversation, in under 2 minutes, let me start with you, Abok. Why is it important as a parent to learn to talk with your child as opposed to talking at your child or to your child?
The big picture, Jen, is important to understand, just like Jason said, that parenting homes are a formative stage. It's important to have the end in mind and get the big picture of a child.
Yes.
The sense Swahili, mtoto uleavyo ndivyo akuavyo. Definitely this child will one time be a parent. And chances are very high that they will parent their children basically the way you did parent them.
Yes.
And of course, if you want them to be able to understand dynamic, it is good to encourage the voice of reason.
Okay.
The reason why we are in a quagmire as a nation today is because the voice of reason is undermined and people do things that look favorable to their own eye. Are we able to come into an amicable understanding and be in a situation whereby we can say, is there a way out in this issue? When we reason with our children, we are actually creating a responsibility in them and understanding that there are always a way out of a situation.
Okay.
Even though it is so dragging,
Yes.
there can be a solution.
All right. Joyce,
Yes.
very briefly, when it comes to understanding, it's good to talk with our children and
Yes.
not always to them or at them.
Yes, it's good to talk with our children, not at them. Before I say that, I want to say something, Jen. You'll allow me to
Very
say this.
briefly? We
Very
are
briefly, because
strained
our
of
time is up.
Yes.
I want to say that we have parents, when they have a conflict with their children, they become annoyed for a whole week, just like the child is also annoyed for a whole week or 2 weeks or months and so on. It's very important for parents to be firm in their discipline and in their correcting their children, but they should never get annoyed beyond that point when they are talking to them and telling them, this is what I expect. They should never be parents who will keep quiet and not talk to that child for a
Yes.
whole month, for a whole week. It shouldn't happen. Or, you know, being able to push away that child. So, yes, your question is very important for us to talk with our children, not at. Actually, when we talk to them, when we talk at them, that is what makes us get annoyed. The child is also annoyed on the other end, and we go for a whole week without talking to them. I think that one parents should not encourage. When a child has done something wrong, let them keep quiet if they want. But as a parent, never ever keep quiet and not talk to your child because they have done something wrong. Correct them, and immediately after that, continue to talk to them and converse with them.
All right.
Yes.
Now, as we close this conversation, 2 tweets. There's Male who says, parents need a crash program on emotional intelligence. Learn how to handle your emotions when you're handling your children's emotions. And there's also Susie who says, my mom will never tell me she loves me. Hata kama nimekasirika, but she will be like, nimetoka mkutano ya mama, angalia pale kwa handbag nilikufichia chapati mbili. That is their way of communicating when they are angry.
That is an action, it's not a speech.
That is how we know our mothers.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that is all the time we had for this particular conversation.
Yes.
Thank you so much for interacting with us. We have been speaking with Fred Abok, who is a mentor, a motivational speaker, as well as a counseling psychologist. We also have Joyce Mgoy, who is the Director of Career Services at Chuka University. Thank you so much, lady and gent, for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
That brings us to a close of this conversation, but more is coming up after this break. Stay with us.